Julian Ellacott. I'm Councillor on Reigate Banstead Borough Council in Surrey. I think, as the Chairman just said, this presentation hopefully leads on very well from Liz's presentation, the part towards the end, talking about the employment of young people. And I very much hope that when I outline our scheme, it passes some of the tests that she was outlining. So, my main purpose today is to really give you as much of a hands-on insight into what we've actually done in Reigate, how we've actually brought young people into the organisation and hopefully given them a chance, given them skills that will help them work into the future and therefore not be reliant on benefits, upskilling them and giving them greater prospects. A quick word about Reigate Banstead. It's not the most high-profile area in the country. We're located just south of the M25. We cover the area just north of Gatwick Airport, stretching up to the outer suburbs of London. The main towns are Redhill, Reigate, Banstead and Hawley. We've got a population, we're actually the largest borough in Surrey. Our area is largely covered by greenbelt. It is, prosperous. Absolutely, we rank highly in quality of life, and we rank lowly in the IMD figures. We do, however, you can see the occasional spots of orange and red on the map in the bottom corner. We do know we do have pockets of deprivation, and therefore, although we're fortunate to be generally prosperous, we're also fully aware as a community, as a council, that prosperity isn't shared across all of our residents. And therefore, we're very much conscious that we can't ignore the people who don't share that prosperity. So it's largely from that sort of philosophy that this scheme was born. So why did we enter this scheme? Why did we start this scheme? As Liz mentioned, youth unemployment actually preceded the current recession, and it is a concern for us in our area. People under 25 have a significantly greater chance of being unemployed than the rest of the population. We know relative to Surrey we've got the highest number of young people, partly as a function of our higher population, but it's still a concern. And also over the past 2 years in particular, the rate of youth unemployment has doubled. So we started this scheme basically to give a number of young people in our borough the chance to gain the types of skills and experience that otherwise they might not be getting in the current market conditions. It was also, from the start, avowedly a longish term scheme, not just a short-term mitigation, and we very much see businesses coming in to support what we're doing. And obviously, again, unashamedly, the council does things that residents like, and we see this as a scheme that benefits our residents and enhances the reputation of the council. We are always looking to improve the lives of everyone in our community. So where did it start? Well, it started with the Surrey Future Jobs Scheme, which itself was part of the Future Jobs Fund back in 2010. We participated in this Surrey-wide scheme with the funding taken from the government. And at that point, we took on 14 members of staff. Just to give you a rough idea, as an organisation, we're a second-tier authority, we have about 500 FTEs. So we took on 14 staff for a period of 6 months under that scheme. Very much to begin with, it was the first time we'd done anything really of this nature, and we employed those guys and girls in our frontline services, so parks teams, street scene teams, and in our theatre. What were the outcomes of that? Well, it was a 6-month scheme. 9 out of the 14 stayed the course, if you like. We had a few leavers. Some left because they had permanent job offers. Some left to go back into training. Some left, I think one went to prison, but a range of outcomes. But 9 of them stayed, and of those 9, 5 actually then applied for and got permanent positions within the council that had opened up in the normal course of events, and they're still with us. So we looked back and reviewed that scheme, and we were very pleased with its outcomes, both for the individuals involved and for the council itself. So, as I'm sure you're all well aware, the Future Jobs Fund was stopped by the incoming government, budget cuts, etc. We actually thought, well, having reviewed what it did for us, we would actually like to continue with our own scheme. And that's why we set up our Young Worker Scheme. We modelled it very closely on the Future Jobs Fund, 26 weeks work, 25 hours a week at the minimum wage. So, roughly speaking, for each worker placement, it costs us about £4,000. We created roles across the council's department and created roles that did real work. As Liz said, you know, the work has to be real, it has to be purposeful, otherwise you really are not doing the job. And also it was very clearly in addition to existing staff and workloads. So we're not replacing existing staff, we're adding to them, we're allowing us as an organisation to do more. Within the 26 weeks, within the 25 hours, the scheme includes time where the young workers as a group go together as opposed to in their individual departments, and they have training on job hunting skills, CVs, application forms, interviews, techniques, financial planning and other life skills, and also some of those periodic sessions during the 6 months are just face-to-face with people from local businesses, where the businesses introduce themselves. They also, the business representatives who are normally from HR departments can obviously see what the young workers are doing, get a feel for their skills, and therefore hopefully making a link that will lead to a job opportunity in future. So, last point there is we did set it up unilaterally. It would have been very nice to have started off with a big partnership-driven scheme, but basically we wanted this to happen, and as I'm sure we're all well aware, when you're trying to do things with other organisations, it's not necessarily the quickest thing to get off the ground. So we set it up on our own, but we're very much conscious that we will expand it over time. So since we've set it up, we've had 2 waves of the scheme. So the first one, YWS 1, we launched last May, and we were fortunate to have Chris Bates, who some of you might remember from The Apprentice, who actually lives in our area and was runner-up in The Apprentice. We had 16 joiners at that initial event, and actually we took on an extra 4 during the period, so we had 20 in total during that tranche, if you like. We widened the number of council departments involved from the original street care type roles into HR, housing, marketing this time round. And in terms of outcomes, we had 2 of the candidates secure full-time jobs with the council, one of whom actually got an apprenticeship in our workshop and was presented with his apprenticeship certificate by Chris Grayling. One had their contract extended, so we actually kept him on for a further period of temporary time, and that might lead to full-time in due course. And 6 signed up. These were working in our refuse and recycling area and parks teams. They signed on with the employment agency that we work with, and they're coming back. Some of them doing temporary work when required with us. Some of them are also working for other organisations through that agency. And 2 secured work in local businesses. Others went, I think one went back to university, others went, I think, elsewhere in the country, and we're not sure what they're doing. And 1 or 2 have gone back into the welfare system, unfortunately. We don't, unfortunately, profess to 100% success rate. So that was the first scheme last May. We've literally just launched the second scheme. This one was launched by Chris Grayling, who, as well as being an employment minister, his constituency covers part of our borough. We had 21 joiners this time. We further widened the number of council departments, this time to include legal, property, environmental health. And again, similarly to the first scheme, we had a launch event. We invited representatives of local businesses. This time we actually had some of the previous scheme members and new scheme members in the panel event answering questions about themselves and the scheme in front of local businesses, really getting visibility for the scheme and for them personally. So that's now up and running, and the young workers are busy working away for our organisation. I've put up here some comments, feedback from some of the young workers, so I won't read through them all, but a couple of them. I never used to like getting up early before I started here. I love my job. That was Ashley. I've never had a bad day in 6 months. That was Richard. And then a couple from our newest starters, Glenn, who actually has a legal qualification already but had problems finding work. I want to fulfil my dream of becoming a solicitor. It feels special to have this rare opportunity. This scheme gives people a window for their future. So, excellent, it's always very heartwarming to have the direct verbal feedback. We feel that the scheme has really worked and really added, if nothing else, to obviously these individuals' lives at a very personal level. So just running through really summarising the benefits of the scheme. Really, clearly it's helped those individuals who have been in the scheme and their families. They've had an income for a period of time when otherwise they might not have done. So we know we're not hitting, obviously, a large fraction of the young unemployed in our borough, but for those that we are managing to recruit, it's improving their situation. It's evidently improved the skills and experience of the young people. Some of them, even just the discipline of getting up in the morning and coming into work, they themselves have cited has just made all the difference in now going out and getting a new job, let alone the CV training and the other training and obviously the job-specific experience they've now got. It's been good for the council, recruitment-wise. As I said earlier, we've filled vacancies that have come up in the normal course of events from people that are already sat in those departments who already know the organisation. We haven't had to go out to full recruitment exercises. We've been able to bring people straight in who already know the job. So that has been a big plus to the council. As I said earlier, the work they've been doing has been additional to the council's work, so we've been able to do extra things. The guys in the street care teams have been able to tackle grot spots in our town centres that haven't been tackled for a long time. Marketing, we've done extra campaigns, we've been able to refresh our literature more rapidly than otherwise we would have done. And ultimately, so far, at a relatively little cost, 61,000 today. And we've had good publicity as a council, and it's been a great way as a council to show that we are doing something. We are helping, in our own way, the young people of our borough. Overall, just one stat, of the two lots, future jobs and the first tranche of young workers, 2/3 of them have gone on to further employment, either with us, with someone else, or into some form of training. So we feel that's been a very good overall outcome. What have we learnt? We've learnt a number of heavily practical points. Many of the recruits, by definition, young people who weren't in employment, had little or no work history. We found actually that provided a great motivation for most of them. There were a few who fell early. They realised that getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning wasn't for them. But for those that did know it was for them, they know what the alternative is like. They come into the workforce being very engaged, very motivated and wanting to work. Many have little experience in completing application forms and interview techniques, so we adjusted our recruitment processes for them to allow for that. We very much traditional HR functions, but for the young workers, we realised that wasn't necessarily going to work. That wasn't going to pick the right people, in common with the question asked earlier. You need different ways to find good people if they don't know the exact interview techniques and so on, or don't have the paper qualifications. Sometimes the expectations were unreasonably high, so we had to manage those expectations. Again, maybe a fact that it was the first time in the market for work. We had to bring them down to earth in some cases about what a job really meant, and having to stay the course and do what you're told effectively. We also knew they needed enhanced support. Again, HR, regular one-to-ones, regular mentoring and support in the role, just to make sure they were getting on okay. Meaningful tasks, I made the point before, the scheme worked very well because of that. And last point, not everyone will succeed. We didn't have a 100% success rate. Some people left because they didn't like it. Some people left for other reasons. So you win some, you lose some, but we did try, and I think that's the main thing. And I think overall, from my perspective, as a councillor, as someone on the council's executive, it showed in a way just how easy it is sometimes to do something.